Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every soul's journey when God whispers, "Relax." A time when our restless hearts must learn to be still and our weary minds must trust the divine rhythm of life. You see, we spend our days chasing what's already written for us. But when we stop fighting the current, when we surrender with faith, the blessings we've been waiting for begin to find us. This morning, I invite you to breathe, to believe, and to remember everything meant for you is already on its way. Trust God's timing, a phrase that sounds simple, yet carries the weight of a lifetime's wisdom. To trust God's timing is to let go of your need to rush the process, to understand that everything under heaven moves according to a divine clock you cannot see. It means believing that there is purpose in your pause, that every delay is not denial, and that every unanswered prayer is being carefully folded into something greater than you can imagine. When you trust God's timing, you stop fighting the flow of life. You stop measuring your progress against others because you finally understand that your story is not supposed to look like anyone else's. What is yours is already written, and no one can take away what heaven has reserved for you. There are moments in life when the waiting feels endless. You pray, you plan, you hope, and yet nothing seems to move. In those seasons, the temptation to give up becomes strong, and doubt begins to whisper that maybe God has forgotten you. But He hasn't. He is still working even in the silence. He is still shaping you, even in the stillness. You see, delay is not God's way of punishing you. It's His way of preparing you. Every pause has a purpose. Sometimes God holds back what you want because He's protecting you from what you can't yet handle. You may be asking for something that looks good, but He sees what's best. So He waits, and in that waiting, He works on your heart. Trusting God's timing is not about sitting still with folded hands. It's about having peace in your movement. It's walking forward with faith, even when you can't see the full road ahead. It's knowing that every step you take, even the uncertain ones, are guided by unseen hands. You might not know the reason for the delay, but God does. He knows the lessons you need before the blessing arrives. He knows that your spirit must be strengthened before your dream becomes reality. Sometimes, the door remains closed because the person you will become by the time it opens will walk through it differently, wiser, calmer, and more grateful. When you trust God's timing, your heart learns patience. And patience is not weakness. It is quiet strength. It is faith stretched across the unknown. It's waking up each day and saying, "God, I may not understand it now, but I will trust you anyway." You don't rush the flower to bloom before its season. You water it, nurture it, and wait. The same goes for your life. God's plans are like seeds planted deep in the soil of your faith. Just because you don't see them sprouting yet doesn't mean they aren't growing. The roots are forming beneath the surface, preparing for the day when the fruit will appear. Too often, we want to skip the process and get straight to the promise. But the process is where the promise is built. It is in the waiting that your faith deepens. It is in the waiting that your patience matures. It is in the waiting that your character grows strong enough to carry what you've prayed for. You may think you're ready, but sometimes God says, "Not yet," because He loves you too much to give you something prematurely. What comes too soon can fade too quickly, but what is timed by God lasts forever. In every great story, there's a period of stillness, a chapter where nothing seems to happen. Yet behind the scenes, the author is writing something powerful. The same is true for your life. God is the author, and He's not finished with your story. The silence you feel is not the end. It's just the part where He's aligning the right people, opportunities, and moments to meet you at the perfect time. Your job is not to control the timing. Your job is to stay faithful during the waiting. When you learn to trust God's timing, your anxiety begins to loosen its grip. You stop living in constant tension, asking when and why, and you start living in peace, knowing that what's for you will never miss you. The more you trust, the less you chase. The more you surrender, the lighter you feel. The more you believe, the more you see small miracles unfold in ordinary moments. You'll begin to notice how perfectly things align when you stop forcing and start flowing. You'll see that every closed door was a redirection, not rejection. Every delay was divine design. Sometimes God delays what you're asking for because He wants to give you something greater than what you're imagining. You're asking for a drop, but He's preparing an ocean. You're praying for a moment, but He's designing a lifetime. But He can only release it when you are ready to receive it without losing yourself in it. That's why He makes you wait. Not to break you, but to build you. The waiting room is where your faith muscles grow. The waiting room is where your perspective changes from why me to thank you for teaching me. A trusting God's timing requires you to release control. And that's not easy for most people. We live in a world that worships speed. We want instant answers, instant success, instant healing. But God doesn't work on human timelines. He's eternal, and His vision stretches beyond what we can see. He knows that what happens too quickly often doesn't last. So He slows you down to strengthen your foundation. He takes His time because He's building something that will endure storms. In your waiting, God is working on details you cannot see. He's aligning hearts, arranging opportunities, and removing what would harm you. He's preparing the stage so that when your moment arrives, everything fits perfectly. And when it does, you'll realize why it had to take so long. You'll see that if it had happened any sooner, you wouldn't have been ready. Every not yet from God is actually a hold on, I'm making it better. You must learn to rest in the rhythm of divine timing. When your heart starts to panic, whisper to yourself, God is never late, because He isn't. He may not move according to your schedule, but He always arrives right on time. Not your time, not my time, but His time. The right time, the appointed time. And when that time comes, no force on earth can stop what's meant for you. There's peace in knowing that your life is being orchestrated by hands wiser than your own. When you finally trust that, you stop trying to fix what only God can finish. You start to focus not on when it will happen, but on who is guiding you through it. Trust becomes your foundation. Patience becomes your posture. Peace becomes your power. You begin to notice how everything you went through was necessary. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour. They all carried lessons that prepared you for your destiny. You realize that God was never withholding anything from you. He was holding it for you until you could handle it. That's what trust really is, believing that God's plan is better than your own, even when it unfolds slower than you expected. You learn to live with a gentle kind of confidence, a knowing that what is meant for you cannot be lost. Even when things fall apart, you trust that it's only making room for something better to come together. You stop living in fear of missing out because you understand that divine timing can't be rushed or delayed by anyone. When it's your turn, you won't have to fight for it. God Himself will make it clear. The storms you face along the way aren't meant to destroy your trust. They're meant to deepen it. Every challenge refines your faith. Every waiting season strengthens your spiritual endurance. And with time, you start to see the beauty in the slow unfolding of life. You start to appreciate that sometimes the miracle isn't that you got what you wanted, it's that you learn to wait without losing peace. When you trust God's timing, you no longer measure your worth by your progress. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You stop doubting yourself just because your path looks different. You start to see that what seems like delay is divine design. God is not punishing you, He's preparing you. He's not holding you back, He's holding you steady. He's not late, He's aligning. And as you live with that faith, you start to move differently. You speak with calm, walk with purpose, and live with gratitude. You stop rushing, stop panicking, and start resting. You begin to smile through uncertainty, because deep down you know, if God said relax, then there's nothing to fear. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Everything is coming in divine time, not a second too early, not a moment too late. You trust, and in that trust, you find peace beyond understanding. Peace invites blessings. It is a truth that the soul must come to know through stillness, not noise. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of divine alignment. When your heart becomes calm, your life begins to flow differently. The energy you give out becomes softer, more trusting, and more magnetic. You begin to attract the things that were always meant for you, but could never reach you while your spirit was in chaos. Peace opens the doors that panic once closed. It allows blessings to find you because blessings move in rhythm with serenity, not struggle. When you live in peace, you stop chasing. You stop begging for what already belongs to you. You stop fighting the tides that God designed to carry you. You begin to understand that blessings cannot dwell where anxiety lives. When the heart is loud with fear, gratitude has no place to sit. But when the heart is quiet, grace enters like sunlight after a storm. The soul that trusts and remains calm becomes a vessel for miracles. It becomes an open space where divine favor can rest, where love can flourish, where ideas can grow, and where joy can breathe freely. There are people who wake up every day carrying storms inside them, storms of doubt, anger, confusion, and fear. And they wonder why peace feels far away, why blessings seem delayed. But God cannot pour into a vessel that is shaking with unrest. Before He fills your life with abundance, He must first teach you how to be still. Because peace is preparation. Peace tells the universe, I am ready to receive without fear. Peace tells God, I trust you enough to rest. The more peaceful you become, the more you attract peace itself in every form, in relationships, in opportunities, in the quiet miracles that surround you every day. Peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is an inner declaration that no matter what the world throws your way, you will not be moved. It is a kind of strength that does not shout or demand. It simply stands. Peace says, I am anchored in faith. And that anchor draws blessings the way a calm sea reflects the light of the sky. When you are peaceful, you stop living from desperation and start living from confidence. The blessings you receive are no longer forced. They flow naturally toward you. Because peace is a signal, a frequency that tells heaven you are ready for overflow. The world often teaches you to hustle, to strive, to chase, to compete. But peace teaches you to align. Peace says, what is mine will find me. And when you live from that knowing, you stop exhausting yourself with fear of missing out. You stop trying to control every outcome. You learn to breathe through uncertainty. And in that breathing, God meets you. He meets you in the calmness you create, in the silence between your worries. Because that's where His voice is the loudest, not in the chaos of panic, but in the stillness of surrender. When your mind is at peace, your decisions become clearer, your intuition becomes sharper. You begin to see signs and answers that were invisible when your thoughts were racing. That's why peace invites blessings. Because peace allows you to hear divine instruction. You begin to notice how everything starts working together effortlessly. Doors open without you knocking. People appear at the right time. Ideas blossom without force. Because God's grace flows best through a calm vessel. The more you calm your inner world, the more your outer world aligns. Peace invites blessings because it reflects faith. A peaceful heart says to God, I believe that you have it all under control. And faith always draws favor. When you live in worry, you create walls that blessings cannot pass through. But when you live in peace, you create windows that light can enter through. Peace is the doorway through which every good thing walks into your life. When you learn to rest in faith instead of wrestling with fear, blessings begin to multiply. It's not that life becomes perfect, it's that you become centered. The storms still come, but they no longer define you. You stop reacting to every wave that rises against you. You stop letting small things disturb your spirit. You start choosing calmness even when everything around you is uncertain. That is where peace becomes power. It is not the loud strength of control, but the quiet strength of surrender. It says, I will not let this world steal my calm. And because of that, your life becomes fertile ground for miracles. Blessings cannot thrive in a heart that is constantly agitated. Imagine trying to plant seeds in soil that never stops shaking. Nothing would take root. The same is true for your soul. When you live in constant stress, the seeds of blessings cannot grow. But when you rest, when you breathe, when you create stillness, those seeds begin to sprout. Peace gives them room to grow. Peace gives them light. Peace gives them strength. Many people think they need to do more to receive more, but sometimes you need to be still to receive what's already yours. Peace is not about inactivity, it's about alignment. When your energy aligns with trust, your blessings no longer need to chase you. They find their way effortlessly. It's like a calm river guiding every leaf to where it belongs. Peace is the current that carries blessings straight to your shore. You cannot fake peace. You cannot force it. You have to grow it from within. Through prayer, through gratitude, through surrender. You have to choose it again and again, especially when chaos calls your name. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, you strengthen your connection to divine flow. And the more you choose peace, the more peace chooses you. Life begins to respond differently to you when your spirit becomes calm. People feel your energy shift. Circumstances start to bend in your favor. Opportunities begin to match your calm, confident frequency. Peace invites blessings because peace is gratitude in action. It is saying, I am thankful even before I see the result. And gratitude is one of the highest vibrations you can live in. When you're grateful, even before you receive, you are already in harmony with abundance. You are already living in a state of openness. And from that openness, blessings pour in. There's a kind of beauty that comes over your life when you make peace your priority. You start letting go of the things that disturb your spirit, toxic relationships, endless comparisons, unnecessary worries. You start protecting your calm like it's sacred, because it is. You begin to understand that nothing is worth losing your peace over. Not the opinions of others, not the pace of your progress, not the mistakes you've made. You start to value quiet mornings, deep breaths, and simple joys. And in that simplicity, God's blessings feel more visible. Peace invites blessings because it aligns you with divine timing. When you stop rushing, you start noticing how life unfolds perfectly. When you stop worrying, you start hearing divine guidance. Peace makes you receptive, not resistant, to miracles. The energy of peace says, I trust the process. And when you truly trust, life becomes lighter. The things you were once chasing begin to approach you on their own. There's a sacred law that whatever you fight against grows stronger, but whatever you make peace with transforms. When you make peace with your past, healing comes. When you make peace with uncertainty, faith grows. When you make peace with who you are, self-love blossoms. And when you make peace with the pace of life, abundance begins to flow. Peace is not about avoiding life's noise. It's about learning to carry silence within you no matter where you go. When your inner world is peaceful, your outer world begins to reflect it. You'll notice that your relationships become more harmonious. Your work becomes more fulfilling. Even your challenges become more meaningful because you no longer meet them with fear, but with calm faith. Peace changes how you see everything. It changes how you respond to everything. And that change is the open door for every blessing to enter. You may not realize it, but peace is a form of prayer. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you are saying, God, I trust you. And God responds to that trust. He sends answers, opportunities, and people that mirror the energy of your surrender. That's why the more peaceful you become, the more everything around you begins to work in your favor. The blessings you receive while at peace feel different. They come gently, quietly, without struggle. They come when you least expect them, but always right when you need them. Peace teaches you to live in flow, to move gracefully through each season, to accept what comes and release what goes. It teaches you to stay centered even when the world tries to pull you off balance. And in that center, blessings find you effortlessly. Peace invites blessings because peace is divine order. It is the natural state of the soul when it is aligned with its creator. Chaos is a sign of disconnection. Peace is a sign of presence. When you are truly connected to God, peace surrounds you even in the middle of storms. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start saying, I know this will work for me. That shift in attitude opens the gates for blessings to enter. You may not always control what happens, but you can always control how you respond. And when your response is peace, you rise above the situation. Peace lifts you to a higher frequency where fear and negativity cannot reach. It shields your heart from bitterness and keeps your vision clear. From that clarity, you begin to recognize the blessings that were around you all along, the ones you couldn't see through the fog of anxiety. The truth is, blessings love peace. They are drawn to it like flowers to sunlight. When your heart is peaceful, it becomes a welcoming home for goodness. You begin to radiate a calm energy that says, all is well. And life responds by saying, yes, all is well. That's how powerful peace is. It creates harmony between your inner world and the world around you. In the stillness of peace, miracles happen quietly. You start to attract what you no longer chase. You start to feel whole even before anything changes. You begin to understand that peace itself is the greatest blessing, and from that blessing, every other one flows naturally. Let go of control. 3 simple words that hold the key to freedom, to faith, and to peace. Yet these words are often the hardest to live by. The human heart loves certainty. It loves to plan, to predict, to hold on tightly to what feels safe. But life in all its mystery rarely moves according to our schedules. There are twists, pauses, and turns that no amount of planning can control. To let go of control means to step back and allow the divine to take the lead. It is an act of surrender, not of weakness, but of deep strength, the kind of strength that says, I trust that God's hands are bigger than mine. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means giving over. It means releasing your tight grip on how you think life should be and opening yourself to how it's meant to be. When you stop trying to manipulate every outcome, you make space for miracles to unfold. When you loosen your hold, you allow divine flow to carry you where you belong. Control is an illusion that exhausts the spirit. It keeps you living in fear, constantly calculating what could go wrong. But surrender brings rest. Surrender is peace wearing the face of faith. It whispers, even if I don't understand, I will trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. There is a quiet kind of beauty in letting go. When you no longer force life to obey your will, you begin to feel the rhythm of a greater plan guiding you. You start to notice that things align more effortlessly when you release your need to control them. People come into your life at the right time. Opportunities appear just when you are ready. Lessons arrive exactly when your spirit needs them. All of this happens not because you planned perfectly, but because you trusted perfectly. So many of us cling to control out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. We believe that if we can just manage every detail, nothing bad will happen. But life was never meant to be managed that tightly. The tighter you hold on, the more you suffocate the flow of blessings. It's like trying to hold water in your fist. The more you squeeze, the faster it slips away. True abundance flows through open hands, not clenched ones. When you let go, you don't lose. You gain clarity, freedom, and peace. You start to live in a state of trust instead of tension. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. Every morning, you wake up and remind yourself, I don't have to figure everything out today. I don't have to carry every burden alone. I don't have to control what's beyond my reach. All I need to do is show up with faith and let God handle the rest. It's a rhythm of release, of exhaling your worries and inhaling grace. Because control doesn't create safety, it only creates stress. The only true safety is in surrender, where you place your life in the hands of the one who sees the full picture. When you let go of control, you begin to live lighter. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You stop forcing relationships, jobs, and plans that no longer serve your growth. You stop trying to rewrite stories that God already finished. Letting go teaches you discernment. It helps you know what to release and what to hold. You learn that holding on to everything only breaks you. But releasing what isn't meant for you gives you space to receive what is. Control often comes from a place of fear, but surrender comes from a place of love. When you trust in divine love, you stop needing to control every outcome. You begin to believe that even if things don't go your way, they will still go the right way. There is a difference between steering your life with intention and clinging to it with fear. When you let go, you're not being careless, you're being courageous. You're saying, I trust that even if I fall, I will land where I'm meant to be. There's a freedom that comes when you stop micromanaging the universe. You realize that your role is to plant the seed, but the growing belongs to God. You do your part. You show up. You give your best. You act with love. But you leave the results to something higher. That's when life begins to surprise you with blessings you didn't even ask for. because control limits what's possible. But surrender allows for miracles beyond your imagination. Letting go of control means allowing people to be who they are. It means releasing your grip on how others behave, think, or feel. You cannot shape someone else's soul journey. You cannot fix everyone's pain. When you try to control people, you lose your own peace. But when you let go, you give both of you freedom to grow, to learn, to love without pressure. You stop demanding perfection from others and start seeing them with compassion. You stop needing everyone to understand you and start trusting that those meant for you will meet you where you are. The need to control often stems from old wounds, moments when life felt unpredictable or unsafe. You learned that control gave you a sense of power. But as you heal, you realize that true power lies not in control, but in trust. Trusting God doesn't mean you'll never face uncertainty. It means you'll face it with calm. It means you'll look at the unknown and say, even here I am safe. Letting go becomes an act of faith, a spiritual rebellion against fear. It says, I will not let my fear of the unknown rob me of the peace of the present. A life has a way of showing us the futility of control. Sometimes, no matter how carefully you plan, things fall apart. But in those moments, you are being invited to learn trust on a deeper level. You are being reminded that control is not your job, faith is. That surrender is not defeat, it's divine partnership. That you were never meant to carry the weight of the world alone. The moment you let go is the moment the universe can finally move on your behalf. When you let go of control, you begin to flow with life instead of against it. You stop resisting change and start embracing it. You realize that the ending you feared might actually be the beginning you prayed for. You understand that every detour has direction. Every delay has purpose. Every unanswered prayer has protection written all over it. Control keeps you blind to that truth. Surrender opens your eyes. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. It means you give your energy only to what you can influence with love and let the rest in divine hands. It means you stop trying to predict every outcome and start living fully in each moment. It means you breathe deeply and accept what is without needing it to be different before you can feel peace. Control says, I'll be calm when things go right. Surrender says, I'll be calm because I trust things are right, even if I don't understand how. The deeper your faith, the easier it becomes to release control. Because faith is knowing that what's meant for you will not miss you, even if it takes time. It's believing that what is taken from you was never yours to keep, and what is meant for you will always return in a better form. It's understanding that you can't mess up God's plan for your life. Not by being late, not by making mistakes, not by being unsure. His timing and purpose are greater than your control. Letting go of control transforms your relationship with life itself. You stop seeing challenges as punishments and start viewing them as teachers. You stop labeling events as good or bad and start seeing everything as growth. You stop chasing what's gone and start nurturing what's here. Control is about fear of loss. Surrender is about faith in gain. When you let go, you create space for life to surprise you. You allow blessings to arrive in unexpected ways. You open yourself to grace that flows without effort. When you stop trying to control the future, you begin to live in the present. And the present is where peace lives. It's where gratitude grows. It's where clarity speaks softly to your soul. Control distracts you with what ifs, but surrender roots you in what is. You begin to appreciate each moment as it comes, not as something to fix, but as something to feel. You stop rushing through life trying to reach the next chapter and start realizing that every chapter holds something sacred. Letting go also means forgiving. Forgiving yourself for not knowing better, forgiving others for not being who you wanted them to be, forgiving life for not going according to your script. You release the grip of resentment and replace it with acceptance. Forgiveness is a form of surrender. It says, I no longer need to control the past to find peace. And when you do that, peace finds you naturally. Control often disguises itself as responsibility, but there's a difference between responsibility and obsession. Being responsible means doing your part. Trying to control everything means trying to play God. When you finally understand that distinction, life becomes gentler. You still plan, but you no longer panic. You still act, but you no longer attach. You still hope, but you no longer demand. You learn to work from peace, not pressure. You begin to enjoy the journey, not just the destination. Letting go is also about trust in divine timing. You stop forcing outcomes before their season. You realize that everything blooms when it's meant to. No sooner, no later. You don't have to pull the petals open. You just have to water the soil of faith. You learn to be patient without losing hope, still without becoming stagnant. Letting go gives you balance, the grace to wait and the strength to move when the time is right. When you live from control, your heart is heavy. When you live from surrender, your heart is light. Control fills your days with tension. Surrender fills them with peace. Control keeps you chained to expectations. Surrender frees you to experience miracles. The shift from control to trust is the journey from fear to faith, from stress to serenity, from chaos to calm. It's the space where your spirit finally breathes again. Letting go doesn't mean your life becomes easy, but it does become meaningful. You start to see the purpose behind every turn. You start to sense divine fingerprints on every detail. You start to find beauty in uncertainty because you know you're being guided. Every time you release control, you strengthen your connection with the divine. Every time you surrender, you step deeper into alignment with peace. Every time you let go, you grow closer to the life that was always meant for you. Faith turns waiting into strength. A truth that rests deep in the heart of every soul that has ever hoped, prayed, or believed through the silence of delay. To walk in faith is to learn how to wait without losing peace, to stand still while the world moves fast, to trust that even when nothing seems to be happening, everything is happening in divine order. Faith does not remove the waiting, it transforms it. It turns the long pauses of life into seasons of preparation. It turns the unanswered prayers into quiet classrooms where patience, trust, and surrender are taught. Faith does not rush the process because faith understands that God's timing is not just perfect, it is purposeful. When you are in a waiting season, it can feel like standing in the middle of nowhere, unsure if the promise will ever find you. But that's where faith becomes your anchor. Faith reminds you that what is unseen is still unfolding. It whispers that just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. Every second of waiting is a test of what you truly believe. Anyone can trust when the path is clear, but faith is proven in the dark. In those moments when you have no evidence, only belief. It's in the waiting that faith stretches you, refines you, and strengthens the muscles of your spirit. Waiting without faith is torment. Waiting with faith is transformation. The difference between the two is perspective. Without faith, every delay feels like punishment. But with faith, every delay feels like preparation. Faith says, I might not have it yet, but I know it's on the way. It shifts your energy from anxiety to assurance. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start declaring, it will happen when the time is right. Faith does not give you a timeline. It gives you peace within the timeline. It gives you something to hold when the outcome is still unseen. Faith turns waiting into strength because it changes the posture of your heart. Instead of pacing with worry, you begin to walk with calm. Instead of doubting the process, you begin to honor it. You begin to trust that every delay carries purpose, that every slow moment is building something inside you that quick blessings never could. Faith reminds you that the waiting period is not wasted time, it's sacred time. It's the time when you learn who you are, who God is, and how to rest in His promise without needing proof. There's something powerful that happens when you stop trying to escape the waiting and instead decide to grow within it. Faith teaches you to look at the space between ask and answer, not as emptiness, but as opportunity. It's the space where your roots grow deep. The tree doesn't grow taller until its roots stretch wider beneath the soil. In the same way, your soul doesn't grow stronger until it learns to trust what it cannot see. The deeper your faith, the steadier your spirit becomes. You stop being shaken by temporary circumstances because you understand that your foundation is eternal. When life slows down, faith speeds up your strength. The stillness becomes a place of discovery. You begin to notice how much beauty exists in the present moment. Moments you would have missed if everything had come too quickly. Faith gives your waiting meaning. It teaches you to breathe through uncertainty, to stay gentle when you want to be impatient, and to hold your peace when everything around you demands panic. It reminds you that waiting is not punishment. It's preparation for the blessing you prayed for. Faith is not about pretending everything is easy. It's about believing that everything has purpose. It's standing tall in seasons when others would crumble. It's smiling in the middle of uncertainty because you know something greater is at work. Faith gives you endurance, and endurance gives you maturity. Every time you choose to trust instead of worry, your faith strengthens. Every time you choose to believe instead of doubt, your heart grows more resilient. The waiting becomes less about what you're waiting for and more about who you're becoming. Sometimes faith teaches you to wait, and sometimes it teaches you to walk away. There are moments when God delays what you want because He knows it's not what you need. And though you may not understand it, faith helps you accept it. It helps you surrender the need for answers and hold on to the peace of knowing you are guided. That peace is strength. It's the kind of strength that comes not from control, but from confidence in the unseen. It's the quiet assurance that everything meant for you is already in motion, even if it hasn't arrived yet. Faith turns waiting into strength because it reminds you who's in control. When you trust that God's hands are on your life, you stop forcing outcomes. You stop rushing to make things happen. You start aligning with divine timing instead of resisting it. And in that alignment, you find rest. You find patience that doesn't break under pressure. You find joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. You find courage to stay still when your fear wants to run. The waiting season is where character is built. It's where pride turns into humility, where impatience turns into wisdom, where doubt turns into devotion. Faith chisels your heart, carving out room for deeper gratitude and higher purpose. It removes the noise of ego that says, I must have it now, and replaces it with the voice of peace that says, I will have it when I'm ready. Every waiting season becomes a mirror that shows you your strength. The longer you stand in faith, the clearer you see how far you've come. Faith transforms the energy of waiting. Without it, waiting feels heavy, like dragging time behind you. With faith, waiting becomes light, like being carried by time instead of fighting against it. You begin to see the divine rhythm in the delay. You realize that nothing is late. Everything is arriving right on schedule. Faith gives you the patience to endure and the vision to recognize divine timing when it finally unfolds. It takes courage to wait with faith. The world teaches you to hurry, to act, to force results. But faith invites you to rest, to trust, to allow. It's countercultural. It's strength wrapped in stillness. It's saying, I will not panic. I will prepare. It's using the waiting period to grow wiser, kinder, and more grounded. When others rush ahead, faith tells you to stand firm. When others doubt, faith whispers, keep going. The waiting becomes a sacred discipline, a quiet act of devotion that shapes your destiny from the inside out. Faith turns waiting into strength by changing your focus. Instead of staring at what hasn't happened yet, you begin to see what is happening within you. You start to see patience growing where there was once frustration, hope where there was once doubt, and gratitude where there was once longing. You start realizing that the growth happening in your soul is the real blessing. By the time the external blessing arrives, you've already been transformed to receive it. When you look back on your life, you often find that the seasons you dreaded waiting through were the ones that gave you the most wisdom. The tears you cried became prayers, and those prayers became strength. Faith turns waiting into a spiritual workout. Every moment of uncertainty stretches your endurance. Every unanswered question deepens your trust. Every quiet day teaches you to listen more to the whispers of your spirit than the noise of your fear. Faith doesn't deny reality, it transcends it. It doesn't say, there is no problem. It says, even in this problem, I know there's purpose. That's what turns waiting into strength. You learn to carry hope without evidence, to smile without certainty, to give thanks without results. The world calls it blind faith, but it's not blindness. It's higher sight. It's seeing through spiritual eyes that recognize the hand of God even in silence. In every waiting season, there is a hidden blessing, the strengthening of your inner world. You learn patience that cannot be taught through speed. You learn humility that cannot be learned through success. You learn dependence on God that no achievement can replace. These invisible lessons become the foundation upon which all visible blessings stand. Without faith, waiting would only wear you down. But with faith, it builds you up from the inside out. When you wait with faith, you begin to feel time differently. It no longer feels wasted, it feels sacred. You start to see meaning in moments that others overlook. The sunrise becomes a sign of hope. The silence becomes a space for reflection. The delay becomes a doorway to deeper connection. Faith teaches you to walk through that doorway not with fear, but with reverence. You begin to see that the waiting is not a pause in your story, it is the story. The chapter where strength is born, where character takes shape, where divine timing writes its most beautiful lines. Faith gives you the strength to smile even when life doesn't make sense. It allows you to say, I may not know how, but I know who. It's not the strength of certainty, but the strength of surrender. It's knowing that no matter what happens, you are held by something greater than your fear. Waiting becomes an act of worship, a way of showing love and trust to the one who has never failed you. You don't just wait for the blessing, you become the blessing. You radiate peace in the middle of uncertainty. You become living proof that faith truly transforms waiting into power. Through faith, you stop counting days and start collecting lessons. You stop asking for shortcuts and start appreciating the slow burn of growth. You begin to see that what you gain while waiting, patience, wisdom, humility, peace, is far more valuable than what you were waiting for. Because when the blessing finally comes, you'll have the strength to hold it, to honor it, to sustain it. That's what faith does. It prepares you not just to receive, but to remain strong long after the waiting is over. Faith turns waiting into strength because it roots you in divine certainty when life feels uncertain. It becomes the steady rhythm beneath the chaos, the quiet flame that keeps you warm through long nights. It's the assurance that no waiting is wasted when your trust is in God. You may not see the outcome, but faith reminds you that the outcome is already written. The waiting is simply your time to become the person capable of walking into it fully prepared, fully grounded, and fully grateful.